Welcome to DJMTV.
People, we greet you now. Welcome now to this our channel, DJMTV, where the summer now with all girl updates. My people, Aisha Yusuf will be saying now obedience mama. She dey support the obedience movement and Peter Obi. She don't come outside talk concerning President Tinubu administration. Wetin play on the 6th of September for tribunal court for that judgment day. Well, I know say she do video when she for address that judge Haruna Samani. Right now, she don't talk concerning wetin play for inside court. No, she not sleep. Oh. When sleeping sickness dey hold on the for inside that court, that they will not say they tired. She not sleep. Oh. She was awake to witness everything that happened in that court that day. Right now, she don't do interview with her rights when she will come talk about this whole matter and what they have for inside Nigeria. My people, not be smart thing though. Yes, my people. She said the matter we play for that court that day. He said the judge herself, the judgment was not the way a judgment was supposed to look like. She said the manner and the two way the judge is say call it talk. It can't be like say they get back belle for the opposition party. They were just somehow. She talk a lot too. She said that one not be justice. What you have for that court that not be justice, not be judgments. Anyway, I will leave una make una watch this video. Una hear what she talk for inside. Make una watch and for the beginning to the end. Hear what she talk, they analyze so much. I don't say she not sleep for court. She listen to all the analysis with judgment, everything. Make una watch and make una don't forget to like and share. Watch the video.
I was there to actually listen, and I paid rapt attention to the whole proceedings. And I'll tell you, overall, just listening to the judgment being read out, and it was disappointing. Not even about the outcome, but one, in the way that it was being read. Two, in the kind of mannerism, in the intonation, in the kind of words that were being read out. And I will tell you that was my first time of being at the sitting where judgment was being read out in such a manner. And I was expecting, those play of words. I've read certain judgments, like, reading the ones of like Lord Denning and all of that and what they've said about words. So that in its own way, just listening to it wasn't as interesting and one would have wanted it to be. But that's by the way. On the whole issue was the fact that the judges, in my own opinion, and I'm a witness because I was directly there on that day, is that the justices sounded more like counsels to the respondents than they did like justices. And I know a lot of people have been saying things like, oh, do you think they will charge you contempt of court and all of that? We have opinions, and most hear our opinions. When it came to issue of the judgment, when it related to the petitioners, you could almost feel the anger, the body language was like angry, the intonation, the words that were being used. Do you think we're going to go to the market and go and get evidence? Things like, oh, you think to come to court and prove that there's an election malpractice or rigging? You think it's like drinking? Is it coffee by an Englishman? They said, all sorts of the way it was being done, almost as if the court was angry that there were actually people who had come to question the election that took place. And in terms of the conversation being had, in terms of the judgment, where you saw, it's almost as if INEC did a sterling job, that there was nothing that INEC had done wrong in all the things that it did. But one other thing that I found most peculiar was when it came to the issue of constitutional interpretation, where when it came to the issue of the forfeiture, the judgment was just read. It was just cliply, as if there's nothing on it, and they just passed over it. But when it came to the 25% of FCT, that's when they would tell us that, look, the Constitution is a living document. You don't just literally, put out the meaning. You don't use literal interpretation to just give an interpretation of it and all of that. And I'm wondering, when it came to the forfeiture, why was that such effort was not also put in place to say, this is not just about now, this is not just about a document, this is about the generation that we have right now and the generation that are yet to be on board, that it's actually a living document. So that kind of, it was not like there's a difference when it came to issue that needed to be responded to. And for me, I just felt people should see that unbiased stance from the justices. Also to add the fact that there was live coverage of the reading out the judgment. They of course didn't want their faces to be seen. They had warned the media about that the faces shouldn't be shown, only when they were coming in. And then I wonder, why was there no live coverage when it came to the time where there was going to be the trial itself, where evidence would be brought in, so that Nigerians, people, the world will be able to see what really transpired in the court, as against just seeing the judgment that was read out that day.
All right, then. Thank you so much for setting the tone of the conversation, and I appreciate the fact that you were live in court, so you were able to see things that I guess the rest of the country wasn't able to. But when we talk about the court noting procedural blunders by the petitioners' legal teams, including failure to file witness statements on oath as required, the court also highlighted paragraphs of the petitions that they deemed vague, imprecise, and generic. The court also emphasized the lack of credible evidence presented by the petitioners. Now, are we seeing how these procedural errors impacted the outcome of the case? Some are saying that the justices did a thorough job, to the extent that even some of the senior lawyers representing the opposition parties were chided for their inadequacies to look into the research to build their clients' cases. Are we looking at maybe a situation where the opposition's petition was watery from the beginning? And especially when we look at that in the backdrop of them going to the Supreme Court, they're not allowed to add any more information, any more witnesses. They're taking that same case to the Supreme Court. Would you say that maybe it was a case of the petition being watery from the beginning?
Well, the thing is that for you and I now, because we're not allowed the live proceedings, I wasn't in court all throughout the trial. So I came in, I wasn't in the country, so I was able to attend the one of the judgment. So first of all, that's why they say when you're talking about justice, it must not only be done, but it must also be seen to be done. And one of the things that all of this conversation would have cleared would have been when citizens were making demands that there should be live transmission from the courts during the tribunal sittings. If that had been out, every one of us would have been able to see this watery evidence that we're putting or watery case or whatever the name that it's called that was put forth. But first of all, that wasn't allowed to happen. And then it is a judgment where it is a justice is now saying this is what they have arrived at that was allowed to happen. Apart from that is also the fact that there is where they said the way and manner in which INEC had been served in terms of getting the evidence, the materials they were supposed to, counsels to the petitioners were supposed to have access to, that they didn't get it. One of the things that we also have to look at is that the court gives instruction, the court gives its orders to INEC, and then INEC doesn't fulfill it. And at the end of the day, we've seen the court just not doing anything about it and just moving it. And this is not something that is just peculiar to the issue of whether it's INEC being asked to allow petitioners' counsels to have access to certain materials. And I could say we're also where amongst the justices, when they were reading out that judgment, where they said that, I think it was Justice Haruna Samani who had read out on the fact that any credible candidate should not rely on INEC for their results and things like that. We've seen time again and again where courts in Nigeria will give order, either the executive or institutions will not obey this orders, and it's almost as if it's business as usual, and they just continue what they're doing without really looking at it at the fact that this is an affront on them. It's one thing for us to talk about technicalities and all of that, but it's another thing for us to say there were people, the people who were on the petitioners' council, there were a lot of sons there. There are people who had, this is not their first time of doing a trial, election petition, and so say that all of them, every one of them, that they didn't file these things the way they're supposed to be filed. I'm not a lawyer, probably the lawyers will be the ones to answer that. But what was most instructive was the fact that the whole justice seems to be on the side of the respondents more than they were just being neutral. And for me, just being, even in the court, the body language, the words, it's almost as if they came alive whenever it was issue of the petitioners that were being discussed. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And I think it was Lord Denny that said that the law is supposed to be there to protect the weak and not to protect the strong. And we must begin to, and for me, that's why over the years, and this is not my first time, and it's not because of the result of what has happened, but the fact is that we need to begin to look at the independence of the judiciary and let us know, do we have, the way we have state capture, do we have also a judicial capture, do we have, how do we, the things that from all of this that we all need to be asking ourselves is that how do judges get into office? What is the process that bring them in? Is it a transparent process? Is it a process where it's plagued with nepotism and all of that? And at the end of the day, how does it constantly affect the judgment that come out of the courts over time? And we've seen a situation in Nigeria whereby people go on judicial rulings shopping. So somebody will leave Imo State and go to Jigawa State because they want to be able to have judgment in a certain way. Someone will leave Kano State and go to Edo State because they want it in a certain way. What are the things that are leading to all of this? You find a court of appeal in one state on the same matter, we give a ruling. Another court of appeal in another place on the same matter, we give a ruling. And so that confidence that Nigerians have in the judiciary, even before the presidential election tribunal started, a lot of people were not interested. A lot of people say, oh, there's nothing that's going to come out of it. We know how this. And I remember constantly saying that, look, it's not our business to trust the judiciary. Our business is to overwhelm the judiciary with evidence. And so these are issues that we must ensure that as a nation, justice must be seen. And even in the case of INEC, it's about the processes, it's about the procedure, it's about the things that need to be done. And if these things are not done, we will continue to have a country where people will not have confidence in the government.
Absolutely. DJ TV. DJ